March 24, 2015. Barcelona El Prat Airport bustled with travelers boarding Germanwings Flight 9525 to Düsseldorf. The Airbus A320, a familiar sight, waited on the tarmac. Passengers finished their coffees, checked phones, and said quick goodbyes. Captain Patrick Sondenheimer, a seasoned pilot, and his co-pilot, Andreas Lubitz, prepared for departure. The cabin crew welcomed passengers, running through safety checks with practiced ease. The plane pushed back, engines roaring to life. At 10:01 a.m., Flight 9525 lifted off, climbing over the Mediterranean. Passengers settled in, some reading, some dozing, others lost in thought. The seatbelt sign blinked off. The crew began service. Outside, the world below was a patchwork of blue and green. The flight reached cruising altitude, 38,000 feet. The pilots communicated calmly with air traffic control. Everything was routine, unremarkable. Flight 9525 was just another dot in the sky, one of thousands that day. No one on board sensed anything unusual. The journey progressed smoothly, the cabin peaceful. The crew moved through the aisles, passengers relaxed. The sun shone through the windows, illuminating a normal Tuesday morning. There was no warning, no sign of what was to come. In minutes, this ordinary flight would become the center of a global tragedy. The world was about to focus on Flight 9525 for reasons no one could have imagined. The day had started like any other, but it would not end that way. The first sign of trouble was invisible to those on board, a sudden, unexplained descent on radar. Air traffic controllers tried to contact the cockpit. Silence. Inside, Captain Sondenheimer had stepped out for a routine break. When he returned, the cockpit door wouldn't open. The reinforced door meant for security now kept him out. He knocked, then pounded, shouting to be let in. The plane continued its rapid, relentless dive. Passengers near the front heard the commotion. Fear spread. The captain's desperate attempts to break down the door were captured by the cockpit voice recorder. Automated alarms blared. Terrain, terrain. Pull up, pull up. But the descent continued. No corrective action from the controls. The aircraft was fully functional, but it was being flown straight into the mountains. The final moments were chaos. Screams, alarms, the captain's shouts. At 10:41 a.m., Flight 9525 crashed into the French Alps. The impact obliterated the plane, scattering debris across the mountainside. There were no survivors. 150 lives lost in an instant. The world was left searching for answers. How could a modern airliner simply fall from the sky? The tragedy was only beginning to unfold. Investigators would soon uncover a story darker than anyone imagined. The descent was not an accident, it was deliberate. The truth would shock the world. The unthinkable had happened at 38,000 feet, and it all began with a locked door. The investigation quickly focused on Andreas Lubitz, the 27-year-old co-pilot. Lubitz had dreamed of flying since his teens, joining a glider club and excelling in training. On the surface, he was quiet, competent, and professional. But beneath, he struggled with severe depression and suicidal thoughts. During flight training, he took a long break for mental health reasons. He concealed his struggles from Lufthansa, passing as fit to fly. In the weeks before the crash, Lubitz's condition worsened. He saw multiple doctors for vision problems, likely psychosomatic, tied to his mental distress. Doctors wrote him sick notes, declaring him unfit to work. Lubitz tore them up, never informing Germanwings. He continued flying, hiding his crisis from everyone. No one in authority knew the full extent of his mental state. The system relied on pilots to self-report health issues. Lubitz's deception exposed a fatal flaw in aviation's trust-based safety net. He was a man unraveling, and no one saw it coming. The tragedy was not just mechanical, it was deeply human. The world demanded to know how this could happen. After 9/11, airlines reinforced cockpit doors, making them nearly impenetrable. The goal: keep hijackers out, protect the flight deck at all costs. Access required a code and pilot approval. An override existed for emergencies, but a pilot inside could lock the door, blocking all entry, even emergency codes. The system trusted those at the controls. No one imagined the threat would come from within. On Flight 9525, Lubitz exploited this flaw. When the captain left, Lubitz locked the door, sealing himself in. The safety feature became a weapon. The captain's efforts to break in were futile. The fortress in the sky became a trap. A system built to save lives enabled disaster. The industry's trust in its pilots had a fatal blind spot. Lubitz knew exactly how to use it. Lubitz's mental health struggles stretched back years. He suffered a major depressive episode in 2009, pausing his training. His medical certificate required regular assessments, known to authorities, but not the airline. Strict confidentiality laws kept doctors from alerting Germanwings. Lubitz saw many doctors, reporting anxiety, depression, and vision issues. Several wrote him sick notes, but he hid them, fearing loss of his license. The airline's medical checks found nothing amiss. His private history was invisible. The system relied on self-reporting, but Lubitz deceived everyone. Doctors were legally bound to silence even as they worried. The airline followed the rules, but the rules weren't enough. Critical information was locked away, never shared. The tragedy exposed a perfect storm of secrecy and trust. The warning signs were there, but no one connected the dots. The system failed to protect 149 innocent lives. The crash site was a scene of devastation, debris scattered across a remote ravine. Investigators raced to recover the black boxes. The cockpit voice recorder revealed the routine start, the captain leaving, the door locking, frantic knocking, and alarms. Lubitz's breathing was calm throughout. He never spoke. The flight data recorder confirmed a deliberate descent. Autopilot set to 100 feet. Speed increased. The evidence was undeniable. The crash was intentional. The BEA's final report, released a year later, was clear. Lubitz had hidden his mental illness and deceived his employer. The system of medical evaluation and reporting had failed. The mountain's secrets were out. This was no accident. The world's worst fears were confirmed. The investigation forced a reckoning in aviation. The truth was chilling, but necessary. The lessons would shape the future of flight. The tragedy could not be ignored. The revelation of a deliberate crash shook aviation to its core. Regulators responded quickly. The rule of two required two people in the cockpit at all times. Many airlines adopted it, hoping to prevent a repeat. Critics warned it brought new risks, more door openings, non-pilots in the cockpit. The debate over cockpit security continues. Focus shifted to psychological screening and support. Regulators re-examined medical certification, seeking to close dangerous gaps. Proposals included centralized medical databases and stronger psychological exams. Airlines launched peer support programs for pilots. The system began to adapt, slowly and painfully. The tragedy forced a global conversation about safety and mental health. The industry learned that security isn't just about doors, it's about people. Change was underway, driven by hard lessons. The Germanwings disaster forced aviation to confront mental health. Pilots feared losing their careers if they admitted to struggles. This culture of silence let problems fester, hidden from view. The crash showed that pilots are human, vulnerable to stress and illness. Airlines began shifting from punishment to support, encouraging early reporting and treatment. Peer support networks grew, offering confidential help from fellow pilots. The goal: catch problems early, before they become crises. Balancing privacy and safety remains a challenge. The industry learned that mental health is as vital as technical skill. The conversation is ongoing, but the stigma is slowly breaking. The human factor in aviation safety can no longer be ignored. The legacy of Flight 9525 is change. Painful, necessary change. The crash exposed flaws in trust, medicine, and culture. Safety is a chain, and the human link is the most complex. New rules, screenings, and support programs aim to strengthen that link. The tragedy taught the industry to look beyond machines, to the people at the controls. For the victims' families, the loss is immeasurable. Their memory drives ongoing efforts to prevent another such disaster. The debates over privacy, reporting, and responsibility continue. Flight 9525 is a cautionary tale of unforeseen flaws and profound responsibility. The lessons learned shape aviation's future. Remembering what went wrong is the key to keeping the skies safe.